Hi, PerspectaWeather.com meteorologist Paul Dorian here on Tuesday, September 3rd. Hurricane Dorian remains nearly stationary this morning just to the north of Grand Bahama Island. It should resume movement to the northwest later in the morning and then pick up a little bit of forward speed later today going into tonight as it runs parallel to the east coast of Florida on its way towards the Carolina coastline. It should hug the coast of South Carolina and North Carolina, perhaps even make landfall in the Carolinas, just inland from the coast Thursday night time frame. And then Thursday night into Friday, it should move well to the east of the Mid-Atlantic region. This is the latest infrared satellite imagery loop of Hurricane Dorian, now a Category 3 storm with maximum sustained winds at 120 miles per hour. You can see last couple of frames the eye has kind of shrunk a little bit, and it has been sitting and spinning over the same water for the past 24 hours or so, that it has actually kind of helped to weaken itself by creating upwelling conditions which result in cooler waters from underneath rising up to the surface. So sitting on top of increasingly cooler waters has actually resulted in a weakening. There is a chance that as it starts to pull away to the north and west over the next few hours, it kind of moves over fresher, warmer waters again, and it could actually intensify a little bit in response to the warmer sea surface temperatures once it begins that movement to the north and west. But again, looks like it'll parallel the east coast of Florida and then run right towards the South Carolina coastline, North Carolina coastline. Very well could go a little bit inland in these particular areas, South Carolina, North Carolina, and certainly could end up going right over the Outer Banks of North Carolina later this week. Well, this happens to be a satellite loop, a real close-up found on Twitter by Christopher Case, with the eye going over Grand Bahama Island and just stalling out over there over the past 24 hours or so. Devastation throughout the northwestern Bahamas here, and in fact, it's still so windy and so rainy, it's hard to get people in there to see exactly what has happened. But here is the eye moving and then stalling out right over Grand Bahama Island. A very close-up satellite imagery loop here over the past several hours or so. And again, the last couple of frames here, you can see it pushing a little bit farther to the north and west, beginning a movement, we believe, to the north and west. Certainly by later this morning and then into the afternoon, it should start to move again after spinning around nearly stationary for more than 24 hours or so in the northwestern Bahamas. Well, here's another map I found on Twitter by Levi Cowan, and it's just a tremendous map here showing the sea surface temperature change. And again, this happened with Tropical Storm Barry over the northern Gulf of Mexico during July, which became a hurricane briefly as it was sitting and spinning over the northern Gulf of Mexico, and it caused some upwelling and some cooler waters from below the surface rose up to the surface. It actually remained cooler than normal in the northern Gulf for a couple of weeks. Well, this is the result of Hurricane Dorian sitting and spinning over the northwestern Bahamas right here. Look at this cool pocket. These are sea surface temperatures right now, not anomalies, actual temperatures, and it dropped considerably right here. And again, that contributed to a weakening from a Cat 5 to a Cat 4 and now a Cat 3. But look at this tongue right here of warmer waters again. So it's not out of the question that as it pulls up into this region, there is some intensification, again, as it moves back out over fresher, warmer waters and moves away from its own generated cooler conditions underneath the eye over the past 24 hours or so. So again, the tongue of the Gulf Stream warm waters here as it closes in closer to the Carolina coastline here could cause some strengthening later today, tonight, going into tomorrow. We'll have to watch for that as it moves out from the cooler waters underneath its current location. Well, here's the current positioning by the National Hurricane Center. Lots of tropical systems right now. There's one in the Gulf that could very well end up moving into northeastern Mexico, another one out over the Atlantic, and yet another one in the far eastern Atlantic. But here is excuse me, Hurricane Dorian. Again, it should begin movement to the northwest over the next few hours here and parallel the coastline and then run towards the Carolina coastline. Very well could move inland, South Carolina, North Carolina, over the Outer Banks, and then likely well to the east of the Mid-Atlantic Thursday night, Friday time frame. It could be some impact coastal New Jersey, coastal Delmarva Peninsula, but it probably the impacts will be limited to the coastal sections, as again it looks like it'll take a track well to the east of the Mid-Atlantic region, ultimately likely pounding away at Nova Scotia at the end of the week. Here's the official forecast track by the National Hurricane Center. Again, starting to parallel the east coast of Florida, and again, I would not be shocked to see it make a little bit of an inland move here along the Carolina coastline. Certainly can go right over the Outer Banks, but a landfall in South Carolina and North Carolina is certainly not out of the question. Then it continues to move to the north and east, and again pounds away at Nova Scotia at the end of the week. Well, let's take a look at the upper level forecast maps of the 500 millibar height anomalies from last night's 6C GFS model run. Again, last week we emphasized the fact that high pressure ridging over the western Atlantic would weaken. In fact, there's no sign of it over this part of the Atlantic Ocean this morning. That would be represented by orange here. Here is, of course, the reflection of Hurricane Dorian. Now, this is a key player right now, as this is a strong upper level trough over the northern plains, and believe it or not, this will play a role in pushing it away from the Mid-Atlantic coastline east of New England later in the week. But let's just move forward here, and again it starts to parallel the east coast of Florida on its way towards the Carolina coastline here, and one trough moves on by here, and then by Thursday could very well reach the South Carolina coastline as it parallels the Carolina coastline towards the Outer Banks here, and then it will be influenced by another upper level trough here, this time over the Great Lakes, and much cooler air actually moves into the Mid-Atlantic region on Thursday, and that will be the time where it'll start passing by to the east Thursday night, Friday, passing well to the east of the Mid-Atlantic region on its way towards Nova Scotia. Again, its greatest impact will be limited to coastal sections of New Jersey, Long Island, southeastern Connecticut, let's say maybe the Delmarva Peninsula, as it heads towards Nova Scotia. And here we are by Saturday morning, right in the region of Nova Scotia, and finally it'll move on out of here. The cooler air that moves into the Mid-Atlantic region on Thursday sticks around on Friday, and we start off the upcoming weekend very pleasant indeed for this time of the year. So again, a quick synopsis here. Hurricane Dorian, now a Category 3 storm, nearly stationary this morning, just north of the Grand Bahama Island. However, looks like it'll resume movement later today, going into tonight, running parallel to the Florida east coastline, and then near or approaching the Carolina coastline by Thursday. Could even make a landfall South Carolina or North Carolina, somewhere right inland there as it heads towards the Outer Banks, and then later in the week, Thursday night, Friday time frame, well to the east of the Mid-Atlantic region. That's it for now. For PerspectaWeather.com, I'm meteorologist Paul Dorian.